Imagine being in retirement, enjoying a well deserved rest after many years of all that hard work. And then you hear this.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are scrambling to agree on a bill to avert a government shutdown before Friday's deadline. This
The
as
threat of another government shutdown. When you hear this, does panic set in? Especially if you're living off of Social Security and a military pension? Some say that, you know what, if the government shuts down, that's going to affect your Social Security and a military pension. But does it? Does it really? Well, let's talk about it. That's the topic of today's video. So let's get into it. So, what is a government shutdown? Well, it basically says that a government shutdown occurs when Congress fails to pass sufficient funds for the federal government's operations and its agencies. Now, it's during a shutdown that many non essential government activities come to a halt, and federal employees may be furloughed or asked not to work until funds are restored. Now, essentially, all services like national security and mandatory spending programs, such as Social Security, typically, typically continue to operate. However, the shutdown can still cause delays and disruption, impacting services and leading to a widespread concerns of uncertainty. Now, I'm only 65, and I spent about 23 years of that in the U.S. Army, and I could think back numerous times when there was either a potential government shutdown or an actual government shutdown. But I can't remember a time where uh, my pay or my activities were affected by any of it. But just looking at some notes, it talks about that the longest shutdown in U.S. history was like for 35 days, and that was back in 2018, 2019, and that affected about 800,000 federal employees that were furlonged or they worked without pay. And I think back, I remember flying out, and a lot of those people were TSA workers. And I would always thank them for coming to work because without them coming to work without pay, we would never get on that airplane. But I believe that the government made good on the hours that they worked once the government passed a bill and was funded again. And it talked about in 2013, the shutdown back then, it took off about 0.6% of annualized fourth quarter GDP. Uh, you're talking about $24 billion out of the economy. So shutdowns generally disrupt the government services and it reduces our economic growth. If you think back, um, our national parks and services, um, they were closed. You go to a shutdown, those are closed. And if you're one of those people that you travel around in an RV and you live that type of lifestyle, let me know in the comments if a shutdown has ever affected you trying to get into a park and enjoy your retirement. Let me know about that. And then I was talking about military. When I spent 23 years in the United States Army, and I can't ever remember a shutdown affecting my pay. And now as a veteran, and I've gone through some of these shutdowns. Yep, that check constantly come. So active duty military personnel, we continue to work. Right, military personnel can't stop. Our national defense. Um, it matters, and it's important that our military continues to work. We can't stop because our senators and our congressmen and women can't figure out how to uh, pass a bill to fund it. Um, and then public services, non-essential government services, a lot of those were halted, right? If the government ever shuts down, so what are we talking about? Like the mail, maybe the mail don't come. Um, and certain other things, driver's license, and a lot of those agencies. But I think a lot of local and state they have plans whenever there's a shutdown. Uh, but obviously, a shutdown causes delays in various federal programs and services. So these shutdowns they highlight the importance of having contingency plans. Do you have a contingency plan if the government does shut down and it affects maybe one of your pays? I don't think it's going to affect Social Security. And if you're a military retiree, I don't think it's going to affect the military retiree. It hasn't in the past. I don't think it will in the future. It sounds like all those in Congress, to include our presidents, will always ensure that the old generation on Social Security and Medicare, as well as our military folks, they'll continue to get paid. So as you can see, a government shutdown, it has the potential to affect your retirement lifestyle, especially if you're one of these retirees that maybe you have a part-time job with the federal government and you need that money to make your ends meet. Now, if you're asked not to work until it's funded, well, that could hurt you. But we do know that Social Security and military retirement, those are mandatory spending programs. So usually those are not affected. But our government is fickle in that there's always that potential for a check to come later than it normally does, and so you're sitting there, trying to figure out how you're going to do certain things, how you're going to pay certain bills. So it's always important, especially in retirement, that you have a rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it. I normally have a certain dollar amount set aside, and that's always in cash, because sometimes when the government shuts down, you know what? You might not be able to get your cash depending on where you put it. So I always have a rainy day fund in cash so that I can take it out and I can still buy groceries and continue to live. Do you have a rainy day fund somewhere? Um, if you do, let me know about it. Let me know what you do to compensate for government shutdowns. But we do know that our military retirement and our Social Security, they're going to keep coming. And our Medicare, if you got doctor's appointment Medicare, that's going to keep getting funded. And those are programs that are needed, and I'm glad that they continue to roll even when a government does shut down. Now we know that the longest in U.S. history that the government has ever shut down is 35 days. So keep that in mind, right? Normally you want to make sure that you have funds set aside somewhere. Um, not for 6 months, 1 year, if something should happen, but the longest is 35 days. So that at some point, the Congress are going to get their act together and they'll pass something so that the government can open up and start funding all these programs again. So something to keep in mind. But shouldn't fear, right? I think someone once said, nothing to fear but fear itself. That's so true. If you listen to the media, they're gonna tell you, oh, the government shutdown is looming, and the world's coming to the end, and drones are flying over the U.S. and uh, all this bad stuff. You know what? Turn the news off. Know that your Social Security and your military retirement are still going to be coming, and life is going to be good. This is Chandler's Retirement Life. Hey, if you have any examples of you going through a government shutdown, let me know about it in the comments. I'd really like to read those. But this is Chandler's Retirement Life. It's a good life, and lights out.